My mother lost her home. I rented her mine for $350 a month, but now she claims it's hers and threatens to sue me for asking $3 more. What I did left her speechless. I'm 34 years old, work in project management for a tech company, and I need to tell this story because honestly, I don't know anymore if I'm losing my mind or if my mother actually believes the things she says. What started as a favor to my parents when they were going through a tough financial situation turned into this nightmare, where my own mother thinks she owns my house. The house I bought with my own money years ago. And now she's threatening to take me to court because I asked her for $3 more in rent per month. Yes, you read that right. $3. But anyway, I guess I should start at the beginning so this makes any sense. I bought my first house in 2011. I was like 21 years old, had just gotten my first decent job after college, and the housing market was completely destroyed by the crisis. I mean, houses were ridiculously cheap. I found this modest little house in a quiet neighborhood. Nothing fancy, but not bad either. And I got it for a fraction of what it would normally be worth. My parents, Margaret and William, didn't help me with anything. Zero. Not with the down payment or advice or anything, because they were struggling with their own finances at the time, and also my mom has always been one of those people who believes that if she didn't do it, then it can't be done. You know what I mean? Like if she couldn't buy a house at 21, then I shouldn't be able to either. But whatever. I did it anyway. I worked 2 jobs for a year to save up the down payment, did all the paperwork myself, and when I finally closed on the purchase, I felt like I had accomplished something important. You know, my first real adult achievement. I lived in that house for like 4 years, fixed it up little by little with my own money, new paint, some better appliances, stuff like that. Nothing extravagant, but I was making it mine. Then I met my husband, Christopher. He was like 25 when we met him, a year older than me. We got married after 2 years of dating, and we decided to move to a bigger house because we wanted to start a family, and that place was too small for our plans. The thing is that instead of selling the original house, we decided to keep it as an investment, like to rent out or whatever. The market was recovering, but not enough to make it worth selling at that point. So we thought, well, we'll rent it, and that's that. Passive income and all that. For a couple of years, I rented it to different people, college students mainly, and honestly, I never had major problems. The rent covered the mortgage and taxes, and there was a little left over. All good. But then, like in 2016 or 2017, I don't remember exactly, my parents lost their house. My dad had worked 36 years at the same company. He retired early because there were layoffs and they offered him a package, and he took it thinking he'd be fine. But turns out they didn't calculate their finances well, and with the reduced pension, they couldn't keep up with their mortgage payments. My mom never worked outside the home. She was always a homemaker, so there wasn't a second income. And well, they lost the house in foreclosure. It was a whole mess. They moved to a tiny, ugly apartment in a neighborhood my mom hated, and I could see they were having a really hard time. My dad looked defeated all the time, and my mom wouldn't stop complaining about everything. One day, my mom called me. This was like 6 months after they lost the house, and told me she had heard I was renting out my old house, and could they move in there? I asked her, okay, how much can you pay in rent? Because at that point, I was renting it for like $800 a month, which was the market rate for that area, and she told me, well, we thought since we're family, you could let us live there for free, just pay utilities. I was like, what? I mean, I understand they're my parents and all, but that house was generating income for me, and plus I still had a mortgage on it. It wasn't like it was completely paid off. And also, the property taxes and insurance were like $4,200 a year. Someone had to cover that. I explained all this to my mom, and she got all dramatic, saying I was an ungrateful daughter, that after everything they had done for me, blah blah blah, the typical manipulative mother speech. I told her no, that if they wanted to live there, they'd have to pay rent like anyone else. And she hung up, angry. We didn't talk for like a month after that, until my dad called me, which was weird because he almost never calls. It's always my mom who does all the communication, and he told me very calmly, look, Rachel, your mom and I received an inheritance from Aunt Beatrice. She had died like 3 months before. It's a considerable amount, and we want to use it to be more stable. Do you still have the house available to rent? I told him yes, that the current tenants were moving out at the end of the month, and then he asked me how much the rent was, and I told him $800. There was silence. And then he said, "Okay, we'll pay it." But then my mom got on the phone, because obviously she was there the whole time listening, and started with how 800 was too much. How could I charge them that being my own parents? That it was robbery? All those things. I was so tired of the situation that I told her, "Okay, look, I'll make you a deal. Just pay me enough to cover the taxes and insurance on the house, which is like $350 a month if you divide it by 12 months. And that's it. I'm not going to charge you a profit or anything. Basically, you're helping me maintain the property and you have a place to live at a ridiculously low price." Seriously, $350 a month for a complete 3-bedroom house with a yard in that neighborhood was literally giving it away. Any other place would cost them at least double or more. My mom agreed, but she wanted to make it all official with a contract because according to her, she didn't want there to be misunderstandings later. Perfect. I told her, "Let's go to a notary and make a formal lease agreement." And that's what we did. The three of us went to a notary's office. We drafted a contract that clearly specified that they were tenants, that the rent was $350 monthly, that I was the owner, and they had no ownership rights over the house, all those important legal things, and we signed it and had it notarized in October 2017. Plus, turns out the inheritance they received was like $120,000 or something like that, a pretty good amount, and my mom decided to prepay like 4 years of rent all at once, like so she wouldn't have to worry about monthly payments, which seemed fine to me. The money went into my account, and everyone happy. At first, everything was fine. They moved in. I gave them the keys, helped them with some moving stuff, and for the first few months, it seemed like we finally had family peace. My mom was happy in the house, said she loved the neighborhood, that it was much better than the horrible apartment where they had been. My dad seemed more relaxed, all good. But then, like a year into living there, my mom started acting weird. She began making improvements to the house without consulting me. Like she changed all the doorknobs to fancier ones, put a new shower head in the bathroom, bought expensive curtains for the living room, planted a bunch of flowers in the garden, that kind of stuff. I thought, well, okay, they're minor things, and plus it makes the house look better. It's not like it's costing me anything. So, I didn't say anything. But then she started referring to the house as her house when talking to other people. I heard it a couple of times when I went to visit. Her saying things like, "In my house we have this," or "when we bought this house." And I was like, wait, what? I corrected her the first time. I said, "Mom, remember, this is my house. You're renting it." And she laughed, like she was joking, and said, "Oh yeah, I know, but I feel like it's my own house." And I let it go because, well, I guess it's normal for people to feel that way about the place where they live, right? But she kept doing it, more and more often. And it started making me uncomfortable, but I didn't know how to address it without seeming like an evil daughter who doesn't want her mom to feel comfortable in her home. Things got really weird in 2019 when my insurance company notified me they were going to increase the house insurance premium because there were several natural disasters in the region that year. Floods or something. I don't remember exactly. But basically the insurance was going to go up from $1,800 a year to $2,100 a year. I mean, an increase of $300 annually. I did the math, and that meant that now the costs of maintaining the house were like $4,500 a year instead of $4,200, which divided by 12 months was $375 instead of $350, an increase of $25 monthly. But since I didn't want it to seem like a big increase, I told my parents I only needed $3 more a month to help cover the insurance increase. Basically, I was going to absorb most of the increase and only asking them for a super small contribution. I sent my mom a text message explaining this, very polite and everything. Like, "Hi mom, hope you're doing well. I just wanted to let you know the house insurance went up a bit this year and I need to adjust the rent to $353 monthly starting next month. It's just a small increase to cover the cost increase. I hope that's not a problem." The response I got was absolutely insane. My mom called me like 5 minutes after sending the message, screaming, and when I say screaming, I mean she was hysterical, saying I was a greedy and horrible person. How dare I ask them for more money when they could barely live on their pension, which was a lie, because they still had like half the inheritance in the bank. I knew because my dad had mentioned it at some point, that I was trying to squeeze every last penny out of them, that she was going to call a lawyer to review the contract, because she was sure I couldn't legally raise the rent. Just like that. I tried to explain to her it was only $3, literally the price of a coffee, but she didn't want to hear anything. She kept screaming nonsensical things and then hung up. The next day, she sent me an email, and this is where things got really absurd, saying that before paying any increase, she needed to see all the bills related to the house, the taxes, the insurance, repairs, everything, because according to her, she had the right to know exactly what her money was being spent on. I forwarded her the lease agreement where it clearly said she was the tenant and I was the owner, and that as owner I wasn't obligated to show her any financial documents, but that I had no problem showing her the insurance bill anyway so she could see the increase was real. I sent her a copy of the insurance statement and thought that would be enough. But no, she started questioning every charge on the bill, saying why did the insurance include this or that, if we really needed that level of coverage, that I was probably paying too much on purpose so I could charge them more, literally looking for any reason to fight. This was in March 2019. And from then until like September of that year, we were in this constant back and forth where she refused to pay the increase. And I kept sending her reminders that I could legally raise the rent, although the contract didn't have a specific clause about increases. State law allowed me to increase it with 30 days notice. And besides, we're talking about $3, not $300. Finally, I told her we needed to meet in person to resolve this because clearly messages and calls weren't working, and we agreed to meet at a diner near her house. Well, my house. But you know what I mean, one Saturday morning. I arrived at the diner and my parents were already there. My dad looked uncomfortable as always. My mom had that look of being ready for battle. We sat down, ordered coffee. And before I could say anything, my mom pulled out a folder. And I'm not exaggerating, a literal folder full of papers, and put it on the table like it was a business presentation. She told me she had been saving all the receipts for everything they had bought for the house since they moved in, and proceeded to show me a detailed list of expenses. The doorknobs, $87. The shower head, $43. The curtains, $156. Paint for the guest room, $92. Plants for the garden, $134. And so on. She had like 40 different items. Everything added up to like $3,800, according to her calculations. Then she told me, very seriously, that since they had invested almost $4,000 in improvements to the house, I had no right to ask them for more rent money, and that in fact I should be paying them for increasing the property value. I sat there trying to process what I had just heard. Because seriously, nobody asked them to make those improvements. And besides, the contract clearly said that any modifications to the property had to be approved by me as the owner before being done. And she never consulted me about any of this. She just did it. I pointed this out to her and she said she assumed that as family she didn't need permission to make her home nicer, and again with the her home thing as if it were hers. My dad was there quiet, drinking his coffee, looking away like nothing was happening. Typical of him. He never gets involved in anything. Just lets my mom do and say whatever she wants. I asked him directly, "Dad, what do you think about all this?" And he just shrugged and said something like, "Your mom handles the finances," basically washing his hands of all responsibility. My mom continued with her speech, saying she had consulted with a lawyer friend, probably a lie. She always says she consulted with someone when she wants to sound more legitimate, and that apparently she had a right to some kind of compensation for the Plaitas, improvements, or that at least the improvements should be deducted from future rent until they paid for themselves. I told her that made no legal sense, that the contract was clear, that she was a tenant and I was the owner, period, and that the improvements she made were her decision and her problem. I never asked for them or authorized them. Plus, many of the things on her list weren't even improvements. They were just things she wanted, like curtains or personal decoration. It's not like an expensive curtain permanently increases the house value. When they move out, they can take them with them. She started getting red in the face. I could see she was about to explode. And then she said that if I wasn't willing to compensate her for her investments, then she was going to stop paying rent completely until the debt was settled. I lost my patience there. Honestly, we'd been dealing with this drama for like 6 months over $3, and now she was threatening not to pay anything at all. So I told her very calmly but firmly, "Okay, Mom, if you decide not to pay rent, I'm going to have to start an eviction process. It's that simple. You have a legal contract, and if you don't comply, there are legal consequences." She laughed like I was joking, said I would never dare evict my own parents. What would the family say? How would I live with that guilt? And I told her I'd rather deal with the guilt than let her manipulate me and disrespect me like this, that I had been more than generous, renting them the house at such a ridiculously low price, that most kids wouldn't do that for their parents, and that if she couldn't appreciate that, then maybe it was better they found another place to live. That made her change tactics. She went from being angry to getting all dramatic and victimized. Started with how she thought we had a good mother-daughter relationship, that she didn't understand why I was being so cruel to her, that they just wanted a quiet place to spend their retirement years, and I was making them feel like they were a burden. My dad finally said something. Very quietly. He said, "Margaret, maybe we should just pay the $3 extra and that's it. It's not that much money." And she turned to him with a look that could kill. Told him to shut up, that he didn't understand the principle of the thing, that it wasn't about the money, but about me trying to take advantage of them. The argument kept going in circles for like another hour, her bringing up new ridiculous arguments, me trying to stay rational and calm, but inside I was exploding, until finally I told her I was giving her a week to decide. Either they paid the full rent with the $3 increase included, or I would start the eviction process and they had to move out by the end of the next month, which was the 30 days notice required by law. My dad looked miserable. My mom was furious, but I think she finally understood I was serious, and we left the diner without really resolving anything but with the ultimatum set. During that week, my mom sent me like 15 text messages, each one more dramatic than the last. First trying to negotiate other terms, then trying to make me feel guilty, then angry again, saying I was destroying the family out of greed, and then victimizing herself again, saying she couldn't believe her own daughter was going to leave them on the street, as if asking them for $353 a month was leaving them on the street. Literally, people are paying $1,500 for a one-bedroom apartment in that area. I didn't respond to any of those messages because I knew anything I said was only going to make things worse, so I just waited for the week to pass. On the last day of the deadline I gave her, like at 11 at night, I received a bank transfer for $353 with a memo that said, "Rent October 2019, under protest." Which made me laugh because under protest? Seriously? But anyway, at least she paid. The next day, I received a text message from her. It wasn't an apology or anything like that. It just said, "I hope you're happy. We're taking food out of your father's mouth to be able to pay your unfair increase. But I guess that doesn't matter to you as long as you have your money. This is how we raised our daughter." What a disappointment. I didn't respond. Since then, from October 2019 until now, she pays the rent on time every month, always with some passive-aggressive comment in the transfer memo, like contribution to Rachel's retirement fund or monthly tribute payment to the landlady, ridiculous stuff like that. We see each other at family occasions, Christmas, Thanksgiving, those things, and she acts like nothing happened, though there are always subtle comments. Like if someone mentions houses or property, she says something like, "Well, we only rent because my daughter won't let us have anything of our own," and I just ignore her. Because I don't have the energy to keep fighting anymore. My dad and I talk from time to time. Always short calls where he asks me how I am, how work is going. Superficial things. We never mention the diner incident or anything related to the house. It's like there's a tacit agreement not to touch the subject. Christopher, my husband, has been super understanding about this whole situation. He's told me several times that if I want to sell the house and end all the drama once and for all, he supports me. But the truth is, it's my property. I bought it with my effort, and I'm not going to let my mom manipulate me into getting rid of something that's mine. Like 2 weeks ago, I received another message from my mom. This one was longer and supposedly more reflective, saying she had been thinking a lot about our relationship, that she feels we've grown distant and it hurts her. That family should be the most important thing, and she doesn't understand how we let money come between us. That she forgives my behavior from last year and hopes we can rebuild our relationship without this tension. She forgives my behavior, as if I had done something wrong, as if I was the one who made a scene over $3. It's incredible the capacity she has to rewrite history in her head. I haven't responded to that message either. I don't know what I could tell her that wouldn't start another months-long fight. The truth is, I feel tired of all this. Tired of having to justify my decisions about my property. Tired of my mom not being able to accept that she's a tenant and not an owner. Tired of the constant emotional manipulation. Part of me feels guilty, obviously, because they're my parents and you're supposed to take care of them and help them. But another part of me knows I've already done more than enough by renting them the house at such a low price, and that their unreasonable expectations aren't my responsibility. I don't know if things will ever get better between us. Honestly, I doubt it. My mom is one of those people who never admits they're wrong. It's always someone else's fault, and I'm tired of being her scapegoat. I guess the lesson here is that mixing family and business almost always ends badly, that no matter how generous you are, there will always be people who think they deserve more, and that setting boundaries with parents is one of the hardest things that exists, but sometimes it's absolutely necessary to maintain your sanity. My parents still live in the house. They pay their rent of $353 every month, and I'm still the owner of the property, no matter how much my mom wants to believe otherwise. And that's how the situation is now. Not really resolved, just existing in this uncomfortable state of permanent tension. Sometimes I wonder if I should have just sold the house when I had the chance and saved myself all this headache, but it's too late for that, so here we are.